audience. Let's go over to our colleague Pallavi Ghosh now, who brought us the beat by beat of the meeting yesterday. Pallavi, key takeaways for you. We've already told our audiences about the big changes, but if you could give us the overview.
Well, Toya, it took around 20 days, I would say, since the Prime Minister announced it on 15th of August from the Red Fort, 20 days, more than 11 hours of the GST meeting. And frankly speaking, the meeting was also supposed to spill over till today. But it was very, very clear that there was a sense of urgency. And the sense of urgency is because there was a pressure also coming in from the industry. What they were worried about is that once the Prime Minister had announced that there is going to be a GST 2.0, people had started holding up or postponing their purchase. During the Shraddh season, which is considered to be the inauspicious period, people in any case don't buy. But what is very critical for the economic growth is the purchasing during the Navratra and, of course, just ahead of Diwali, Dhanteras, and so on and so forth. So that kind of representation did go across to the Finance Minister, which is why there was a sense of urgency. As the FM herself pointed out at that late-night press conference, look at the focus area. Though she said this to us very categorically, it's got nothing to do with tariffs. But of course, the tariff factor was very much uppermost in her mind. Look at the key sectors. First of all, the aspirational middle class, their concerns and their aspirations have been addressed. So you have cheaper television sets, you're going to have smaller cars. There were concerns among the small car manufacturers that Altos and all are not being bought. People are going in for luxury items. So people are only buying a two-wheeler, but no one is going in for these small segment cars. Well, now they've become cheaper. So what you've done is you've encouraged the people to transition from the idea of buying a two-wheeler to actually a four-wheeler, which could be a small car. That is one thing which has been addressed. As I just said, aspirational middle cars, for example, televisions, mobiles, all of them will become much, much cheaper, air conditioners and all of that. Also, as far as the health, I would say the focus is on health. One, of course, we all know insurance completely nil as far as the individual insurance is concerned. But more importantly, the focus on the senior citizens. That is also very much there to see. The anti-obesity drive of the Prime Minister, which is why those products considered to be bad for our health, pan masala, zarda, tobacco, aerated drinks, where additional sugar is being added, all of that are now going to face a steep GST rate of 40%, so as to discourage. So just to quickly wrap up, what is it that the new GST structure has addressed? The health concerns, the middle class, the manufacturers, the farmers, the dairy sector, huge slash as far as ghee and many of the dairy products, the variety of milk is concerned, and therefore not for the consumers and for the manufacturers, it's easy. And finally, Toya, for the traders and the shopkeepers, the entire process of filing for GST and also calculating the GST was extremely cumbersome. That certainly now has been done away with.
Okay, Pallavi, we could just ask you to stay with us right now. Okay, let's play out for you, our audience, some of the changes and what they're going to represent. Let's take a look. Okay, first up, we take a look at what this is going to mean for farmers. Right now, there's going to be a big change if one is trying to purchase tractors, certain kinds of biopesticides, micronutrients. Where they stood at 12%, now they're going to be standing at 5%. Again, for farmers, drip irrigation systems, sprinklers, all coming into that 5% slab, machines for cultivation, harvesting and threshing, again, all in this 5% slab, as you can see. So these are some of the big changes that have happened for this particular group of people. Okay, now what becomes more expensive? Because what we've talked about so far is solely where the change has happened, the drop has happened. But let's take a look first at bikes. Bikes, 350cc and more, they're going to go to from 28% to 40%. This is not the only travel category. You have cars over 1200cc, 28% to 40%. So you'll have a 40% tax slab there. Yachts, 38%, again to 40% in terms of the jump. Revolvers and pistols, again 28% to 40%, as you can see over here. Apparel, any apparel rather, that is in the 2,500 rupees and over, that will go from 12% to 18%. Agarbattis, again 12% to 18%. Non-alcoholic drinks, 18% to 40%. Aerated beverages with sugar, 28% to 40%. And caffeinated drinks, again 28% to 40%. So this is a clear move. Let's just go over to our colleagues Pallavi and Aman to understand a little bit more. Aman, if our audience were to ask you the reasoning behind the blocks that have seen an increase, seeing that increase. So, for example, we were talking about aerated drinks, caffeinated drinks. That slab has been changed and it's 40% now. That is a conscious effort by the government to encourage a certain kind of eating habit and discourage a certain kind of eating habit. Can you bring us the overview there?
Well, it seems that clearly, Toya. I think the government is describing these goods under 40% as sin goods. And, yesterday when a journalist asked Nirmala Sitharaman that, the Congress is already criticizing why you have put 40% on some goods, Nirmala Sitharaman replied that, does the Congress want tobacco and cigarettes to be taxed at just 5%? That is why we put them at 40%, because these are sin goods. Everybody's been disencouraging people from using tobacco, using cigarettes, the high luxury goods, buying yachts, buying big cars. All this has been put at 40% because this is seen as a luxury item, and that is why you have to give the higher tax. But I think, Toya, the larger picture is that, the big GST cut, which will be effective from September 22nd, I think is both good economics and good politics on the part of the Narendra Modi government, as it will spur consumption and public spending, in this festive season. Also add, I would say, to the centre's bouquet of gifts for the common man ahead of key state election battles which are coming up. Government sources are telling me that they are expecting record spending by consumers during the festive season this time, as the GST cut is coming into effect on the first day of Navratri, September 22nd, almost a month ahead of Diwali on October 20th this year. And, after the big income tax relief given during earlier this year under the new tax regime, when the budget was announced, the GST cut is in a way the second big gift for the common man this year. This puts the BJP also in a good stead ahead of the coming election battles, because they could say that this is like Narendra Modi government putting more money in the hands of the common man, increasing his or her purchasing power. And as Pallavi was also explaining earlier, the government has fast-tracked the implementation of the GST cut also after PM Modi announced the rationalization excise as a Diwali gift, August 15th, because this government was aware that it needs to roll out the GST cut much before Diwali, so that consumer spending is not dampened during the festive season, as people tend to hold off purchases if they are anticipating a price cut. And very importantly, I think nearly every item vital to the common man has seen a massive GST cut. Either it's down to 5% or 0%. Medical insurance, life insurance seeing nil GST. All this is very, very good news for the common man, and it could really spur consumer spending. And what many are talking about, a revenue loss, may actually turn out to be a even exercise, because the consumer spending is expected to hit a record level in the festive season starting September 22nd.
Stay with us. We'd like to thank you. We're going to go over to our colleague Pallavi after this, but in a second. First, let's play out reactions for you.
तो सबसे पहले 8 राज्यों ने ये कहा था कि हमारे ये रेवेन्यू लॉस हो सकता है। क्या ऐसे में ये बात आपने उठाया? क्या आपको कोई आश्वासन दिया गया है कॉम्पनसेशन?
बिल्कुल, हमने ये बात बिल्कुल सामने रखी थी, पर लेकिन आश्वासन कोई नहीं मिला। हमने यूनियन गवर्नमेंट को, जीएसटी काउंसिल के हेड चेयरपर्सन को बोला था कि हमारा जो लॉस हो रहा है उसको कहीं ना कहीं कंपनसेट किया जाए, पर उन्होंने हमारी बात पे ध्यान नहीं दिया। पर लेकिन हमने कॉमन मैन, जो देश का कॉमन मैन है, आम लोग हैं, जो उनको ध्यान में रखते हुए ये बड़ा फैसला लिया है। क्या 2 स्लैब्स होगी, 4 की बजाय 2 स्लैब होगी। कुछ गुड जो है वो 5% पे आ गई, कुछ गुड जो है 18% पे।
और ये बात इंश्योरेंस और फार्मास हेल्थ सेक्टर पे भी इसको
सबको छोड़ दे।
Okay, let's take you from this now to one more aspect of this entire story. As Nirmala Sitharaman announced the GST reforms, the political storm over these changes intensified. Former Finance Minister P. Chidambaram critiqued the Modi government's GST reforms, labelling them as overdue after 8 years of ineffective policies. He questioned the government's timing, suggesting that Trump tariff pressures and the upcoming Bihar elections may have forced the government's hand. Meanwhile, the TMC has hailed the rollback as a victory for common people. The party defended Mamata Banerjee's long-standing criticism of the insurance tax, calling it cruel and anti-people. We're just going to play out some of these reactions for you. Then we'll go over to the reporters to understand more.
क्या टोबैको के ऊपर 5% टैक्स मांग रहे हैं कांग्रेस पार्टी? क्या तंबाकू के ऊपर और गुटखा के ऊपर कांग्रेस पार्टी चाहती है कि हम 5% में दें? मुझे समझ में नहीं आ रहा है कि कांग्रेस पार्टी उनके समय पर जीएसटी लागू करना असंभव माने, क्योंकि ट्रस्ट स्टेट केंद्र सरकार के ऊपर ट्रस्ट नहीं था। वो कॉम्पनसेट कर पाएंगे, कुछ अश्योरेंस दे पाएंगे, इन सभी विषयों के ऊपर यूपीए सरकार के ऊपर स्टेट गवर्नमेंट्स भरोसा नहीं किया, इसीलिए वो लागू कर नहीं पाए। हम मोदी जी के नेतृत्व में लागू भी किया और सेकेंड जनरेशन रिफॉर्म्स भी कर रहे हैं, जिससे जनता को राहत मिले उनका डे टू डे आइटम्स के ऊपर, और एमएसएमई और लेबर इंटेंसिव यूनिट्स को भी राहत मिले, जिससे वो ईसी कंप्लायंस भी होगा, रेट भी कम होगा। कांग्रेस पार्टी को मैं कैसे क्या शब्द उपयोग करूं, उनके माइंड तैयार करें। अपोज करना है कि समर्थन देना है, अच्छे विषय जो जनता के लिए हित में है उसमें समर्थन देने में कोई जनता आपके ऊपर कोई कंफ्यूजन में नहीं रहेंगे। मगर अब जनता आपको सही जवाब देंगे, आपको एक्सपोज करेंगे जनता।
Okay, let's go over to our colleague Pallavi to understand more. Pallavi, first, could you just bring us an overview of the different political reactions we've seen from members of the INDI?
Well, I would say that everyone is now rushing to take credit. I mean, Rahul Gandhi had always spoken about the GST structure as being a kind of a Gabbar Singh tax, and he had objected to it, saying that what the government's GST structure was doing was fleecing both the consumers and bleeding the manufacturers and the traders. So today, the Congress, if you look at the timeline, Toya, they are already rushing in to give that credit. Well, some like Mr. Chidambaram and Jairam Ramesh are saying it's come a little bit too late, and they have a rider. Their thing is that they do want compensation to be given as far as the revenues are concerned. On the other hand, you have a Mamata Banerjee, her earlier letter to the Finance Minister when she had said that we are objecting to a GST on insurance. Now they have released that letter to make the larger point that this is exactly what we wanted, and we are glad that the FM has heard us out. Just to add on, politically speaking, of course, there's advantage to the BJP ahead of the elections, ahead of the perception. And I'm sure the opposition parties wouldn't want the BJP to steal the thunder or limelight. And that is why they've begun to criticize and also snatch the credit and saying it is because of us that the government had listened to us.